In a month, I will be turning my classroom keys in for the last time, packing up my Honda and driving 18 hours across country to the western slope of Colorado. The thing is, I've spent the majority of my 60 years here in Sioux Falls. I'm an unapologetic city girl. I don't much like camping. I don't ski. I'm a flatlander who does not like to drive in the mountains. And before last summer, it'd been a while since I'd even gotten my hands dirty in a garden. What am I thinking, you may be wondering? Well, it all started with the kid, my only kid. My daughter Lily went to the University of Minnesota and majored in food systems. I hear your brains asking, what the heck is food systems and what does it have to do with Colorado? First of all, I'll tell you about food systems. It's the study of everything from how to grow food, transporting food, nutrition, health, the waste of food, the lack of food, basically how food affects society. It's a major, much like education, that will never make you rich. Therefore, when Lily graduated, she took a position with AmeriCorps, which is a government program that brings young people into places generally of high poverty, of which the western slope of Colorado has many. Lily's office was in Telluride. If you've ever been to Telluride, Colorado, then you know it is absolutely breathtaking. It sits in a box canyon surrounded by the San Juan Mountains. It's not high poverty. No one but Oprah and Tom Cruise and their class of people live in Telluride. So like most folks, she worked in Telluride but lived outside of Telluride. She and her partner eventually bought a house in a little tiny town called Nucla, Colorado, and she turned in her Midwestern roots for a mountain future, and I realized she was never moving back here. When it dawned on me that this is the future, my only child living across country from me, I started poking around Zillow to see what kind of properties I could find for my retirement. I wasn't really serious at the time, just kind of curious. What did my husband think of all of this? Here's what you need to know about my husband, Jeff. He's all in for adventure. The majority of his 62 years have been spent as a freelance photographer and videographer here in Sioux Falls, mostly working for advertising companies through his company Spectrum Films. He's also a musician and loves to see live music. In 2013, he and a few of his buddies decided to start a television program called the White Wall Sessions. They would bring in local, sometimes regional, and even national musical acts. And they had a show on KELOLAND at 10:30 on Saturdays in direct competition with Saturday Night Live. But they garnered quite a following through the years. This program became a labor of love, not a huge moneymaker. All of us in our family, we go into things that do not make us wealthy. So in 2024, Jeff and his crew finally turned off the cameras. I feel lucky to be married to a person who, when I said, I found this property in Natarita, Colorado, what do you think? He was right on board and agreed to have our daughter vet it for us. The landscape of the western slope and Natarita, Colorado, is pretty diverse. It showcases mountains and desert. It's actually considered high desert, which just means that the elevation is between 2,000 to 6,000 feet, and it has a diverse temperature range as well. The days can be incredibly hot and the nights can be cold. And the winters can be very snowy because of the elevation. We have found that winters are about 40 degrees, and we kind of like that. It was the end of October 23 when exploring Zillow, fantasizing about a future next to my daughter, that I popped in her zip code and fell upon this property, an unusual property, weirdly modern. It is a metal structure of 3 feet and mostly glass, and it looks over 40 acres. Needless to say, I was intrigued and impressed by the pictures. However, here was the rub. It's off the grid, all solar with propane. There's a cistern, but we have to haul in water. Remember when I said I'm not much of a camper? I thought I might be in over my head on this one. But yet, the kid is so close. We soon contacted the realtor and had Lily look it over for us. And suddenly we found ourselves in the midst of inspections, negotiations, mortgage paperwork, and finally the day of closing, all without having stepped foot on the property. It actually wasn't until Thanksgiving of 2023 when we finally walked into the house and on the property, and we fell in love. Since moving in, we have found many, many things to spend our hard-earned cash on. First of all, we found the solar had to be completely redone. We had to build a very large pergola and invest in new panels and a generator. Secondly, we moved in a shed. I fondly call it the studio, to house my husband's camera and editing equipment, along with his plethora of guitars and albums. Then we built a deck or a veranda between the studio and the house, painted the entire interior, and put new flooring in. When my husband shuttered the white wall sessions, we decided he should move out to the property so it wouldn't be left vacant until we could actually retire. I would join him once I reached the rule of 85 and became fully vested in the South Dakota retirement system. That's what's happening this year. As you know, I do need a job, basically for insurance, but there's so much I look forward to. Walking our 2 new-to-us dogs, Rico and Moon, gardening, checking out the local wildlife, and basically taking a slower approach to the world, one where maybe you have to stop and wait for the cattle to cross the road. What was I thinking? I was thinking life is an adventure meant to be enjoyed. I was thinking that winters in South Dakota are becoming way too cold the older I get. And I was thinking everything is so much better with the ones you love, especially when there is a new member of the family to enjoy. And soon, instead of 18 hours, it will only take 12 minutes and 34 seconds from my front door to his. That's what I was thinking.